This is Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt of the Christ School of Theology. I'm here today to share with you the good news of Leibniz and his views on the identity of indiscernibles. You're watching a series of lectures on the great German thinker Gottfried Leibniz, who lived from 1646 to 1716. Last time I introduced these two pleasant-looking little formulas here. This is the so-called indiscernibility of identicals. If two things are identical, they have all of their same properties. And this is the identity of indiscernibles. If two things are indiscernible with respect to their properties, they are the same thing. Leibniz's law actually is the conjunction of these two assertions. Okay, so let's talk about the identity of indiscernibles. What he is saying, of course, is that two substances cannot resemble each other completely and differ only in number. Solo numero, right? Now, understand, he does not regard so-called spatial temporal properties as difference-making properties. When I say spatial temporal properties, I would say located here perhaps, or located there. Time t1, spatial location s1, time t2, spatial location s2. Now, if you go back to Thomas Aquinas, who of course died 1274, Aquinas argues quite plausibly that every angel is its own species, because the angels don't have matter, and if they don't have matter, there's nothing to individuate one angel over and against another angel other than its essence. And so to distinguish one angel from the next, they would have to be of a different species, you see. Okay. Now, in Aquinas' system, matter is the principle of individuation. Leibniz does not go that way, okay? Matter is not a principle of individuation, because finally, matter is a kind of an intentional object for him. That is, an object of perception. We'll get there, okay? So what he says is that there are no spatial temporal properties that individuate substances, because you see, spatial properties and temporal properties would be purely extrinsic relational properties, and these really don't individuate at all. Everything that is a thing over and against another thing must be individuated by its intrinsic properties. This is all part of the predicate and notion theory. The properties are included within the notion of the thing. He holds there cannot be two qualitatively indistinguishable hunks of matter in different locations. It's interesting how he does this. Because the hunks of matter, to be different hunks of matter, they have to be intrinsically distinguishable. A quote. Leibniz writes, "Although time and space, i.e. the relations to what lies outside, do distinguish for us things which we could not easily tell apart by reference to themselves alone, things are nevertheless distinguishable in themselves." Now he's going to make the claim now that any type of distinguishability that we seem to be getting from extrinsic relations finally devolves to the intrinsic relations of a thing. Continuing, he says, "Thus, although diversity in things is accompanied by diversity of time or place, time and place do not constitute the core of identity and diversity, because they, that is to say different times and places, impress different states upon the thing. To which it can be added that it is by means of things that we must distinguish one time or place from another, rather than vice versa." This is a view of things that's quite different than Newton. Newton certainly thought in terms of absolute space, so that things are distinguishable by their location in space. Leibniz says that space and time are derivative upon the thing, if you will, derivative upon the property of the thing. And sometimes in the philosophy of science, the so-called relational view of space and time, Leibniz is talked about over here. Leibniz, as we saw, held to the indiscernibility of identicals. Leibniz's law is both of these. Leibniz holds there are no purely relational properties. Things are individuated by their intrinsic properties alone. Now here, just reflect on this. Two things cannot be ultimately discernible in their relational properties without being discernible in their intrinsic qualities. So if you think you found a relation that individuates one thing from another, that is somehow not intrinsic to the thing, look harder. You're going to find that that relation, if you give a full analysis of this putative relation, it's going to trace back or devolve back to the intrinsic qualities of the thing. All right, this should be easy enough. Now to the principle of continuity. He would not like quantum physics, right? Because he claims that nature never makes leaps. If you know what quantum physics is, it's quantum, it's just the idea that nature does make leaps, right? You go from one orbital to the other orbital. You don't pass through all these intermediate stages. Nature comes with definite quanta. No, not for this man, who's a great mathematician, certainly understood, he thought he understood the nature of the infinitesimal. He holds that there is in things an actual infinity. Now, if you remember from Aristotle, Aristotle held that the actual infinite does not exist. The potential infinite, you start from one thing, you can always add another thing, but you can't have a collection of things, of all infinite things. Leibniz says no. That's what, mathematical points on a line are, right? You have an infinite collection of things. They make up the line. And just as you can't go from this part of the line to that part of the line without going through the line, any change in nature must pass through an intermediate change. Nature never makes leaps. Now, perception, then, I'm perceiving this thing or that thing, arises by degrees as well. We are, all the time there are perceptions that we're having that we're not really attending to, but when they get to a certain point, we then see something. There are perceptions that he says are too minute to be noticed, but when we get to a certain point, we notice them, okay? The idea here is that perceptions, our intentional perceptions and those subliminal perceptions, if you will, they're all of the same kind of thing, on the same line. Okay, very quickly, we're going to get in next time to his metaphysics, but you just need to hold on to this notion that everything for Leibniz is composed of simple substances, and each simple substance has a complete individual concept. Okay? So Aristotle is a simple substance that has a complete individual concept, and all truths about Aristotle are contained within the complete individual concept of Aristotle. Predicate and notion theory again. I'm Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt, Christ School of Theology. All of this makes sense, and pretty soon we'll see how it connects to God. Thank you very much.